So you want to drive the UltraShift. Well, that's why we're here. Over the next few minutes, we're going to take a look at the components you'll be using, proper startup, selecting a starting gear, normal driving operations, and proper shutdown procedures. We'll also answer some of the most frequently asked questions we've received at the end of this program. And what we don't cover in this video, you'll find detailed in your driver's instruction manual. In fact, we recommend you read through the manual before you drive the UltraShift, just to be sure you're thoroughly familiar with what you've got working for you. So, let's get started. Now, there are two key UltraShift components in the cab: a shifter to select different operating modes, and a gear display, which displays the gear you're in and the gear you're moving to. The gear display is also used to alert the driver when clutch abuse is being detected. We'll go over what to do if this is observed later in this program. Eaton offers two shifters, a lever and a push-button panel. Regardless of the configuration, the shifter has 5 modes: reverse, neutral, drive, manual, and low. There are also up and down buttons, which we'll discuss in a few minutes, and a service light, which may alert you in the event of potential transmission problems or service needs. Different OEMs may provide their own shifters and gear displays, but their functions are the same. If you're not using Eaton design components, just be sure to refer to your vehicle manual for instructions on the location and use of your components. Now let's take UltraShift out on the road. As with any vehicle, be sure to use proper safety procedures. Buckle up and be sure the parking or spring brake is set. You'll also want to be sure the shifter is in neutral, and I'll tell you why that's especially important in a few minutes. Next, turn the key to the on position. At power up, UltraShift will go through a self-test. You'll notice that the service light comes on and goes off, and the gear display shows a solid N, indicating the UltraShift has registered that you're in neutral. Assuming you've achieved normal power up, a solid N on the gear display, just start the engine. The process of selecting a starting gear is the same, whether you select reverse, drive, manual, or low mode. First, apply your service brakes while selecting a starting gear. This is important because if the service brake is not applied while selecting a starting gear, you won't be able to get into your initial starting gear, and you will need to reselect neutral and then press the brake while reselecting the desired mode. Now select a mode and release the vehicle parking brakes. The gear display will flash the gear you're going to. Once the gear is engaged, it will stop flashing and be displayed solid. If you selected drive or manual, you'll be able to select different starting gears using the up and down buttons, depending on how your vehicle is programmed. Now, it's important to choose a starting gear that's appropriate for the load and grade conditions. Excessive clutch slippage creates heat, which is detrimental to clutch life. In other words, the starting gear should be the same as the gear you'd choose using a manual transmission. It's also very important to understand that the UltraShift transmission is not intended to provide hill hold capability. The service brake should be used to stop and hold the vehicle on an incline. To prevent the vehicle from rolling when starting on an incline, place both feet on the brake pedal before sliding the right foot to the throttle pedal. Gradually back off the brake while applying as little throttle as necessary to move along the incline. You'll also want to keep in mind that if you select your own starting gear, UltraShift will remember and continue to use that starting gear in drive or manual until you choose another starting gear or until you shut down the unit. Alright, when your gear display is solid with the gear you want, slowly release the service brakes and apply the accelerator, and you're ready to go. If you've selected drive, UltraShift will automatically upshift or downshift during the shifts. The gear display will flash the gear you're going to. And when you're in gear, it will become solid with the new gear. One note: in drive, UltraShift will adapt to the changing conditions of the vehicle. But right after power up or after changing loads, UltraShift needs to learn the new conditions. While learning, it may hold a gear instead of upshifting. Simply push the up button to start the upshift. It may take 3 or 4 shifts for UltraShift to learn the new conditions. After that, UltraShift will handle upshifts and downshifts automatically. Also, when coasting to a stop in the lower gears, UltraShift enters coast mode and won't finish downshifting until the driver gets back on the throttle or the vehicle is nearly stopped. This is normal for the UltraShift. Now let's take a look at manual mode. When manual is selected, whether you're moving or at a stop, UltraShift doesn't shift under normal conditions unless you use the up and down buttons on the shifter. In other words, as you accelerate and decelerate, press the up or down button to request a shift. If a shift can't be completed due to engine RPM and road speed, the shifter will signal a tone, telling you that it can't complete the requested shift. Now, just like manual mode, low mode can be selected at any speed or at a stop. If you selected low from a stop, the UltraShift will engage and maintain first gear. Selecting low while moving, for example when driving down long grades, will optimize engine braking by initiating downshifts at higher RPMs and, under normal conditions, inhibiting upshifts. Now let's recap all of this. Remember that any of your modes, drive, manual, or low, can be selected at any speed or from a stop. So, if you started out in low and want to upshift, simply select manual and use the buttons to shift. Or you can select drive and let UltraShift shift automatically. If you're already in drive and want to take over the shifting, simply select manual and use the buttons to shift. Let's move on to reverse mode. When using reverse, first remember to select the proper reverse gear for your load and conditions. Some models have multiple reverse gears, so we suggest you refer to your driver's manual for information on the number of reverse gears available for your transmission model. You should also keep in mind that in order to engage a reverse gear, you should be at a stop or moving at less than 2 miles per hour. Selecting reverse from neutral will engage low reverse, and an R will appear on the gear display. Just as with drive, manual, or low, the gear display will flash the gear you are going to. Once the gear is engaged, the display will be solid. If conditions require a different ratio, you can then use your up and down buttons to engage your other reverse gears. Now let's talk about clutch protection. As mentioned earlier, the UltraShift transmission is not intended to provide hill hold capability. The service brake should be used to stop and hold the vehicle on an incline. If the system detects the clutch as being overheated, a warning tone will sound and the gear display will flash a C, then an A, signifying clutch abuse, followed by the selected gear position. The warning tone will continue until the clutch system cools, the throttle is released, or the clutch is fully engaged. If one of these is not done and the clutch heat continues to rise, the launch quality may be adversely affected and the clutch may be damaged. Regardless of whether you're shutting down the vehicle or parked with the engine idling, be sure to select neutral. Verify the display is solid N. Again, be sure this is a solid neutral. Then set the parking brake and turn off the key. One note. After the key is turned off, you may hear the transmission make shifting noises for about 20 seconds. This is the normal calibration routine for UltraShift. That's it. That's all you need to know to drive the UltraShift. If you still have questions, there's a short question and answer segment at the end of this program. We recommend that you watch the question and answer segment and that you read your driver instruction manual before driving the UltraShift. Not only will it give you useful tips, but it will walk you step by step through each of the procedures we've discussed here, as well as a number of others, including basic maintenance, troubleshooting, PTO operation, and diagnostics. As always, if you need more information, contact the Road Ranger Service Network at 1-800-826-4357. That's 1-800-826-HELP. Even though driving the UltraShift is pretty straightforward, we get a lot of questions about special conditions. So let's take them one at a time.
Question: what are the best conditions for using manual and low modes?
Manual mode should be used whenever you want to select the shift instead of letting UltraShift select them for you. For example, when you're moving around the yard, crossing railroad tracks, and on some grade conditions. We recommend you use low mode anytime you want to maximize engine braking and minimize the use of the brake pedal. For example, when driving down long grades or when coming to a stop.
Question: what should I do if my service light comes on?
During power-up, the service light will come on and go off. This is normal operation. But if your service light comes on and continues to flash or stays on while driving, it means that UltraShift has detected a fault and you'll want to get the vehicle to a service facility as soon as possible. We also recommend that you note the driving conditions when the fault occurred in order to help the repair facility diagnose the problem. For instance, was it hot or cold? Wet or dry? Were you traveling on a grade or over flat terrain? You should note any change in available gears after the fault occurred. If UltraShift detects a fault and normal operation has been restricted, in some cases it's possible to reset the system in order to drive to a service center. To reset the system, just shut the vehicle down for at least 2 minutes. This full power down may be enough to get you to a shop. For more detailed information on diagnosing faults, refer to your driver's instruction manual.
Question: does UltraShift allow skip shifting?
Yes. Skip shifting can be performed by selecting manual mode and simply pushing the up button more than once.
Question: how does UltraShift work with cruise control?
UltraShift is totally compatible with cruise control. If a shift is required while cruise control is active, UltraShift will temporarily interrupt cruise while the shift is performed, and then automatically re-engage cruise when the shift is complete.
Question: why does the engine brake occasionally come on during a shift?
Depending on the conditions, UltraShift can activate the engine brake in order to bring the engine down faster for an upshift. This can happen even if the engine brake dash switch is off.
Question: what if I shut the truck off while the transmission is in gear?
As we explained in the shutdown procedure, it's very important to select neutral and verify the display is a solid N before shutting the truck off. If the truck is shut down or stalls in gear, UltraShift may become locked in gear. The transmission will attempt to get to neutral during the next power-up if the shifter is neutral. If neutral is achieved, a solid N appears on the display. But if neutral can't be achieved, a dash will appear on the display and the engine won't start. If a dash appears during power-up and the shifter is in neutral, here's what you do. First, turn the key to off and let the transmission power down for at least 2 minutes. Then depress the brake pedal and release the parking brake. Make sure the shifter is in neutral. Now turn the key to the on position. UltraShift will attempt to shift into neutral once you turn the key on. But you may have to slightly release the brake pedal to help reduce torque on the driveline. Once it reaches neutral, a solid N will appear on your gear display, and the truck will start. If a dash still appears after this procedure, get the vehicle to a service center. We've covered some of the most frequently asked questions, but if we didn't answer your question, check your driver's manual. Again, it has detailed information on the procedures we've outlined. If you need more information or support, contact the Road Ranger Service Network at 1-800-826-4357. That's 1-800-826 Help.